Morning, everyone. Jeff Koppel, realtor, general contractor. The other day, I was working on a kitchen remodel for a client, and they asked me to create a video on an appraisal, sorry. Basically, they were wondering after they did their kitchen remodel, should they get an appraisal done? And I asked them, well, how long is it going to be before you want to sell your home? And they said, well, we're probably not going to want to sell it for another 10 or 15 years, but we're just kind of wondering if it would be valuable to get an appraisal or not. So I thought what I would do is just kind of talk about appraisals a little bit. An appraisal is basically the valuation of a property at a particular moment in time. So an appraisal's value is really only good for, just a few days after it's created. Values of properties go up and down over time. And so you really shouldn't do an appraisal until there's an exchange of property, basically. So that's why whenever you sell a property, the buyer's lender does an appraisal because they want to know what's the value of this property at this particular moment in time. So what I thought I would do is show you an example of an appraisal that's done by a lender. This is a property that we did back in 2013. It was one of our fix and flip properties. And interesting thing about this time frame, this was 2013, there was some interesting stuff going on in our government in response to the mortgage crash of 08, 09. Basically, Dodd-Frank legislation had just been put in place earlier in the year. And this particular lender chose to do two appraisals on this property. And the second appraisal came in significantly less. And as a result, we actually reported the incident to the comptroller of the state of Texas. And the second appraiser was actually sanctioned because he chose comparables that he was asked to use by the lender. And the comparables, this was a waterfront property. All the comps on that second appraisal were all non-waterfront, smaller lots. So basically it devalued the property quite a bit in comparison. So anyway, enough of that. This is basically the cover letter for the appraisal. And this particular appraiser put the value at 685. And this appraiser's name here. And then this is the first page of the appraisal. You can see it gives basically all the legal information about the property, owner of it, which was me at the time. And then the neighborhood characteristics here. The one unit housing trends here. This is all information that's of value to assessing similar properties when they do the comparisons. So, and it just goes into some of the physical characteristics of the subject property, which is the property that's being sold. So down here is where we first start getting into the comparable properties. So what's going to look at is sold properties. So here's the subject, the property that is being considered for sale. And then here are comparables that have been sold. And it goes down through and it makes adjustments for, this one is, smaller than the subject. So they did a price adjustment there. This one has more total rooms than this one. So they did a negative adjustment. And you can see the adjustments here based on the physical characteristics of the properties. And then whether or not there's a pool. Our subject had a pool. This one didn't. Neither did this one. This one did have a pool. So, and then they'll, put information about prior sales of the subject. We actually purchased this one for $320,000. It was a short sale that needs some repair. And then go down through the report a little bit more. And it's just basically appraiser's notes of how, their talking about sources of information that they're using, that kind of thing. And go down through a lot of this uniform code stuff. Here's the appraiser's licensing information. And again, the value that she came up with and the lender that the appraisal was done for right here. Now this is some additional comparables as well. They did a total of 5 comps for this particular appraisal report. It's just, again, there's like 34 different pages, and it'll go down here eventually, and it will start showing pictures of first the subject. It's the front of the house, back of the house, street view, and then some internal things: the kitchen, living room, bathroom, master bed, bath, that kind of thing. And then it starts getting into the comparables to show, okay, how similar or how different are the comparables? And it's basically just going to show a front elevation. So then it gets into a little bit more detailed features of the subject itself: exterior features, interior lighting, a little bit more detail. And then it gives a footprint of the subject and second floor. And then it shows the plat. It shows the location of the property within the neighborhood. And another elevation just showing a little bit larger. And then proximity of subjects here. I'm just going to show where the comps are. And you can see all the comps are all, in this particular appraisal, they're all waterfront. And last but not least is her license. So that's basically what an appraisal looks like and what it's used for. Like I said, in this particular case, the lender had an appraisal done, and then because they were being very conservative after the initial implementation of Dodd-Frank, they requested a second appraisal to try to undervalue the property. And we did some negotiation to get it a final agreed upon value of, I think, 641. But anyway, like I said, that was in response to recently implemented Dodd-Frank legislation and Consumer Finance Protection Bureau that was formed because of it. So anyway, that hope that gives you some information about appraisals and when they're useful and when it's really not necessary to get an appraisal. If you plan on staying in your home for a lengthy amount of time, wouldn't bother with getting an appraisal unless you're just curious. But there is definitely a cost involved in an appraisal, so that's something to consider. The other time you might consider doing an appraisal is if you're arguing tax valuation with the county. And right now, prices are just starting to come back down after the COVID price spikes that we all experienced around the country. So right now is probably not a good year to try to argue your valuation because they're all pretty, still pretty high from the sold comps in recent time. So you might want to hold off until next year to do any kind of tax argument. And I know that there's been some legislation passed in Texas recently that's going to lower taxes for all of us a little bit. Anyway, I know the homestead exemption has doubled, so that's going to help with taxes a little bit too. So hey, well, anyway, if you guys have any additional ideas for videos, I'd be happy to prepare a video, answer a question for you. And you can just send me those requests at jeffkoppel@gmail.com. It's down there in the lower corner of the screen. And look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Have a great day.